Have you ever been called a name? You ever been called a name? All right, let me be a little bit more specific. Have you ever been called a name you'd like to forget, but you still remember it? My sophomore year of high school, I was walking through the crowded hallways of DuPont Manual High School in Louisville, Kentucky. Go Crimsons. And I came up on a bunch of guys and girls standing around, and a guy named Matt looked up and he saw me, and in front of me, he called me Dot. Now, I'd never been called Dot before, so I was a little bit confused. And then it hit me, because like every other high schooler at that moment that I knew, my face was breaking out at the time. And Matt says in front of everyone, "You guys want to play Connect the Dots on Jason's face?" Oh, thank you. I survived. I'm all right. Oh, I had a name for Matt then, but you're going to have to email me because I can't say it in church. So I can't describe how embarrassed I felt. Like all the life just drained from me. I can't remember a ton about high school, but I remember that day. Because that day I got a name. Names have power, don't they? Some of you still have names that someone else gave you ringing around in your head, and it's been years. Some names are given to us by others, but at least this is my experience. I've just found that oftentimes the worst names are the ones that we give ourselves. A few years ago, a few years after that encounter with Matt in high school, I was a student at the University of Louisville. Actually, I should probably say I was attending the University of Louisville. I was not much of a student. The semester had ended, and back in those days, you could call in to some phone number. This was back when phones had cords attached to them. I don't know if you remember that, but you could actually, to get your grades, you'd call into this number, and then you'd put your student ID number in, and then this automated voice system would tell you your grades. And so I called in, and this sweet, kind, gentle, automated woman's voice starts walking me through my grades. So she's like, English literature, B. Like, this is good. Music history, A-. Intro to earth science, B+. And then she got to the last one, math 101. And guys, I'm not joking. I called back multiple times and let my friends hear this. As soon as she goes, math 101, the voice changed to a man's voice and simply goes, fail. It was like they hired the guy who did the Mortal Kombat, finish him, to tell me that I failed. I remember everything about that moment as well. In part because it just affirmed a name that I had given myself at some point in my life. It wasn't that I failed. It's that at some point in my life, I began to believe that I'm a failure. That's a name. That's who I am. That's a name now. See, that name right there was a real apt description of how I felt about almost everything in my life at that point. I've been caught in lie after lie after lie after lie. Man, I heard a lot of people, failure. I made promises to others that I never intended to keep. Failure. Most importantly, I made promises to God I never intended to keep. Failure. And I took that on as a name. You ever taken on a name for yourself? Something that you just fundamentally believe to be most true about yourself? My guess is we got a lot of names represented here right now. Some of you have taken on the name damaged. Some of you carried in here the name rejected. Some of you, the name you've carried around is weak, burden, complicated, high maintenance. Who am I? I'm the cheater. I'm the bother, ugly, lazy, sloppy. Of course, you never say these things. It's not like you introduce yourself to people this way. Like, hey, I'm the failure. Hi, I'm rejected. No. You just feel it. You just know it. And these names that we've taken on can weigh us down like we cannot shake them. Some of us, we could fill a screen with it. When we've been carrying around a name for years like a heavy weight. And see, here's what happens. The longer we carry around our names, the less they describe our past and the more they begin to determine our future. At one time, the name described what we had done, but then it becomes our identity. It's who I am. See, this is the fundamental difference between guilt and shame. There's a big difference between the two. Guilt is about an action. Guilt is about what we did. Shame is about identity. It's about who we are. You didn't just fail. Shame drives it deeper. No. Shame says, no, you are a failure. That's your name now. You didn't just cheat. No. You are a cheater. It isn't that you just couldn't accomplish what you set out to do. No. Shame says, you are weak. That's your name now. It isn't that you just have some regrets from senior week, some regrets from spring break. No. You're easy. That's what shame says. That's the name that you take on now. What do we do? What do we do with the names that we've taken on? With the shame that weighs us down? What do we do with it? You know, when I first started reading the eyewitness accounts of the men and women who walked with Jesus, I was struck by how many encounters Jesus had with people that were carrying around their own names, like the ones you see here. People who had shame, people whose shame had settled in on them like a heavy weight. And I was just drawn in by the way that Jesus engaged with failures and posers and screw-ups and cheats, because he treated them in ways I never expected. People like Simon. Simon, he was an expert fisherman until one day Jesus showed up and invited him to leave fishing behind and follow him, and he did. He left it all behind to follow Jesus. They spent years together, and his friendship with Jesus and his commitment to Jesus, man, it deepened. And in fact, at one point, Jesus gave him a nickname of sorts. He called him Peter. He's like, from this point on, man, I'm calling you Peter, which means rock. This is so cool, man. It's like he's saying to everyone, he's like, man, you are like a rock. I can do something in this world with a man as strong as you. And they were tight. And then it all fell apart. It all fell apart in an instant. It fell apart the night that Jesus was arrested. The moment that Jesus was most vulnerable, because when Jesus was arrested, Peter, along with the other followers at the time, they deserted Jesus, bailed, left him behind in order to save themselves. And after binding Jesus up, the authorities march him to the courtyard of a home nearby for a sham trial, and a crowd begins to gather to watch. And Peter, under the cover of night, made his way into the crowd to try and see what was happening with Jesus. And because it was night, he was doing what everyone else was doing at the time. He's trying to stay warm. So he huddled up around some coals that were burning in order to keep warm, and with the dull glow of burning embers lighting his face, a young woman recognized him. I know you, don't I? I know you. Weren't you one of Jesus' followers? Peter was quick. He didn't even hesitate. No, I don't know what you're talking about. No, I don't even know the man. But see, now people were staring, trying to figure out where they'd seen him before, and after some time went by, another person asked. He said, are you sure you weren't with Jesus? Peter was quick. I don't know the man. No, I don't know him. And then finally someone said, you know, when you were talking, I heard a little bit of an accent from Galilee. Isn't that where Jesus is from? You were with him, weren't you? And this time it says that Peter was furious. He starts screaming. It actually says he starts cursing. Some people think he was cursing Jesus. He's screaming, I don't know the man. And then the eyewitnesses who were there and documented everything in detail tell us something that happened that is so striking. At that exact moment, Jesus, bloodied from being punched, Jesus, already having his face covered in spit, Jesus looked across the courtyard that they were in and locked eyes with Peter. Peter broke down. He wept with shame over what had just happened. And Peter took on a name in that moment: liar. And for 3 days, he lived with the reality that he would never be able to make this right with Jesus. Jesus was dead. He saw him be put in the tomb. Peter was condemned by his actions. But then something happened. And Peter couldn't explain it, but he could not deny it either. Because he went to the tomb on third day where they had laid Jesus, and he looked in there. There was no body. And I can't imagine the confusion and the awe and the anxiety and the fear that this must have brought up in Peter, because the last time he saw Jesus, he was lying about him. He was denying that he even knew him. And now, even though he can't explain any of this, even though he doesn't understand what's happened, he knew that everything has changed now because Jesus was alive. And I would have to imagine that one of the thoughts that crossed Peter's mind, at least in that moment, is that if Jesus is alive and can walk out of the tomb and can defeat death, what's he going to do when he sees me? And I realize that with this many people in the room right now, we're probably all over the map spiritually about what we believe about God. I realize some of you are here and you're not sure you believe anything about God. But I'll just ask you this. Have you ever wondered, if there is a God, what does God think of you? What does he think of you? I mean, if there is a God, then it goes to stand that he knows what we've done. He knows the names that we've taken on because of the choices that we've made. If there is a God, then he's locked eyes with you in your moment of greatest shame. He locked eyes with you when you burned down the marriage. He locked eyes with you when you used that girl to get what you wanted. When you said those things that you wish so badly you could take back. When you broke the promises you made. He locked eyes with you when you relapsed. When you lied again and again and again. When you denied him again and again and again. Knowing what we know about ourselves, it's natural to wonder, what does God think of me? Because I know the name I'm carrying around. And this thought terrifies Peter. So he hides. He hides. He goes back to doing the only thing that he knew how to do. He started fishing again. And one day, as he's fishing with some of his friends, something remarkable happens. They've been fishing all night and the sun was just starting to rise. They're about 100 yards from the shore, but then they looked out from their boat and they noticed on the shore a small fire on the beach. And then from that fire, a figure, because they couldn't quite make it out. The sun was just rising. They couldn't see, but then they heard a voice coming from there. And the voice they recognized. And they look at each other in disbelief for a moment, and then it hits them. We know that voice. It's Jesus. And the Bible says that Peter then put on his clothes and jumped into the water, which means he was fishing in his underwear, which is super weird, but whatever. We'll skip that for a moment. And then Peter jumps into the water and he swims to shore. And when he gets there, he finds Jesus standing by coals of fire. Well, Peter knew that smell. He had smelled those coals burning before. It was singed in his memory. Because one of the last times he smelled burning coals was the night around that fire pit. As he stood there lying while Jesus was being tortured. And he remembers his name there on the beach that day. Liar. And the tension in the air is thick. Jesus is certainly about to put him in his place, right? Jesus is certainly about to bring down the hammer. He's certainly going to let Peter know that because of his lie, because of betrayal, Peter had forfeited life with God. That's not what he got. What Peter got instead was a simple question. This is how it happened. It says after breakfast, Jesus asked him, he said, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And we don't know what these Jesus is referring to. He could have been talking about these like fishing. Do you love me more than that? Do you love me more than these, the other guys who are in the boat? The point is he's saying, do you love me more than anything? Like, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Peter said, you know I love you. Then feed my lambs. Now, Jesus didn't have a bunch of sheep following around. He's using this as a word picture. He's saying, I got a job for you, Peter. I got something for you to do. I've got people for you to take care of in the days ahead. He asked him again. He goes on. He says, Jesus repeated the question, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Yes, Lord. Peter said, you know I love you. Then take care of my sheep. And then one last time, the third time, he asked him, Simon, son of John, do you love me? Peter was hurt that Jesus asked him the question a third time. He said, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And Jesus said, feed my sheep. The third time, Peter's hurt. Because Peter now knows exactly what Jesus is doing. the smell of the coals, the 3 times Jesus asked, reminding Peter of the 3 times he lied. Jesus is taking Peter back, isn't he, to the source of his greatest shame. And that hurts. That hurts. And while this is painful to Peter, man, Jesus needs to do it. Jesus needs to dig up the source of his shame. He needs to bring out sin fully out into the open. Why? Because to understand the depth of God's love and grace, you have to understand the depth of your need for it. You won't get it. He digs it up because he needs Peter to see that the grace of God is so vast and expansive that there's no sin so deep. There's no denial so egregious. There's no shame so heavy that his love cannot break through. If you've ever wondered what God might think of you and the names that you've taken on, Jesus makes it clear that his sole objective is to meet us in our shame and to make us new. He takes the initiative, doesn't he, to restore their relationship. He asked him, do you love me? That's a relational question, isn't it? I mean, there's a ton of questions Jesus could ask. There's a lot of questions I probably would have started with. First among them, like, why'd you lie, bro? Like, what's up? What were you thinking? Are you going to do better next time? Can you just promise me that? You promise never to do that again? He doesn't ask any of that. No. He just simply asks, do you love me? Do I love you? Jesus, you know what I did a few days ago. Do I love you? You know what I did last year. You know what I did when I was in college. You know what I did to my family. Jesus saying, hold up, I'm not talking about the past. I'm not asking about the past. I'm here right now in front of you. Jesus is relentlessly focused on today and tomorrow. He doesn't condemn Peter to the past, and he will not condemn you either. See, this is why religion will never work. You know that, right? Religion's a sham. Because religion can never heal our shame in our past. It can only add to it. Why? Because religion says you need to keep the rules in order to make God happy with you. In order to earn God's love, you got to do more stuff. The problem is that you just never know if you've ever done enough. Always anxious. Have I done enough? Have I done enough? Some of you were sold a crock, man, at some point. You were told that what God wants most is for you to clean up your act, for you to get your life together, to be better, then he'll be happy. And you walked away from that because it was an impossible burden. And if you did, I want you to know, man, your impulse was right. And I want you to know that when Jesus meets you at the place of your deepest shame, he doesn't ask you what you're going to do to make up for it now. He asks about the relationship. Do you love me? Jesus is asking Peter that day whether he loves him, because it's almost like Jesus saying, look, Peter, my love for you is secure. I love you. But can you move past your past and follow me? Because I've moved past it. But can you move past it? Can you leave the name? Which brings me just to one other thing I want to point out from this encounter. See, it strikes me that the healing work of Jesus begins with a name. What were the very first words out of Jesus' mouth? Simon, son of John. So personal. He doesn't just say Peter. He doesn't just say Simon. He says Simon, son of John. It's like he's using his formal name. It's almost like if he were to grab me and say Jason, Allen, Mitchell. I'm not talking to all the Jasons out there. I'm talking to you. Do you love me? You know, the only people who call me by my full name are those who know me best, and they only use it when it matters most. And there's a point in that. It's almost like Jesus is grabbing him by the shoulders and saying, this moment matters more than you could possibly know, because you have allowed your shame to define you. You've taken on that name, but I know you. I know the you that I made you to be. I know your name, not the name you've taken on. I know you, Simon, son of John. You denied knowing me, but I've never left you. Is there any shame you're carrying around today? Is there a name you've taken on that feels like a heavy weight? Jesus has never left you. Never left you. You know, our church is full of people who've had the shame of their past and the names that they've taken on healed in the presence of Jesus. You are surrounded right now. You're surrounded right now with people who've experienced Jesus meeting them in the place of their deepest shame and bringing hope. People like John. And I love his story. And I wanted to share it with you. So take a look.
You're standing in that tunnel, right? You hear the fans, you hear a band, you hear this thumping, and it just shakes your body, and I got goosebumps. It's just like, let's go play ball. You go out in that tunnel, man, you feel like a god.
Lob to the corner, fullback, Whitman, touchdown. Here's the give to Whitman, he's in for the touchdown.
Football was everything to me then. I was devoted to that sport, and I busted my rear end because I just knew I had to. I used sports to kind of get away from the home life because it wasn't great. High school, college, first 2-3 years of NFL, I wouldn't do none of that. I went and take an aspirin. Those 7 years playing with the Steelers, I kept getting more and more injuries, and I had to stay on the field game day. It started out where I was given Vicodins, things like that. And then I started getting shot up before games with painkiller stuff. All of a sudden, before I know it, I'm an addict. You become physically dependent. I just don't know how it took me like that, It's just, I go back, I can't, it just took control of my whole being. Took John Whitman away from my family, and it destroyed everything. And it's just like a nightmare. I knew how to take enough where I'd feel fine with the euphoric feel, when I'm around people, but then when I got home, I just was gobbling them up, and when you do that, you just don't want to do anything, and I took myself away from the kids. They started doing their sports, I started not going, and come up with excuses for this and that. Didn't really want nothing to do with my wife. I kind of stayed to myself. And that's when she's like, I know there's something wrong with you. You need to do something. I wouldn't acknowledge it. I was just saying it's not true. I just deny. And then called the NFL for help. When I came home from rehab, I'm clean. Within a week, I'm back on them. And then I go to another place, come back. Okay, I'm good for 6 months. I do it again. And for 15 years, I was a horrible human being. And I still struggle a lot with that. And I know I lost a family because of it. Just a lot of bad things were happening, and and when my youngest kid saw me with a gun in my head, I didn't want to be here no more. But somehow, some way, a gentleman named Bob, I knew him as my boys' lacrosse coach. That's all I knew him as. He asked me if I would go to church with him, and I'm like, man, I don't want nothing to do with God. I just didn't want nothing to do with it, and he was persistent, and he followed up with me all the time for 10 years. And I wouldn't go, or I'd say I'd go, and he'd come to my house, and he'd sit there and wait for me. I wouldn't come out for 10 years. And then just one day, a couple years ago, he's like, John, I'm going to a Christmas Eve gathering at LCBC. You want to come with me? I'm just like, okay, I'll go. And then I go in there. I didn't really want to go in. We go in, and of course, where do we go? We got to go to the very front and sit. That's where he sits, and I hated it. But then when that music come on, I don't know what it was, man, but then I just was like, I need help. I need help to get through all this. I don't know if the feel being there the first time was just, I'll tell you right now, it was a better experience than coming out of any tunnel of a football game. That was the beginning of me getting in a relationship with God, and it took a lot, because even since then, there were some bad things that happened. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep making me pay for this? I just kept going. I believed in God through my mind. I didn't give my heart to him. My neighbor right here, 85 years old, Paul, I'm out cleaning my chickens. He's driving past in a little scooter. He stops. Out of the blue, he's like, are you in a relationship with God? Do you believe in God? Have you been saved? I knew I didn't have him in my heart all the way. And he's like, do you want to be saved? And I was like, yeah, man, geez, I need help. I need him in my life, but how do I go about it? Am I worth even being in a relationship with him? Because I'm still ashamed of my past. He prayed for me there on the spot, and I felt this huge 10,000-pound boulder come off my shoulders. It was an unbelievable night, August 31st, last year. And I know in my heart now he's there. That's what makes me want to get up every day. I have chills and happiness when I think about it. This is real with me now. I wish I could have got to know him earlier in my life, and I thought I didn't need that. Everything was just fine, you know what I mean? I'm an athlete, I'm making money. That stuff's all just, man, none of that's really important to me now. There's gonna be some hard times, but I have the Lord in my heart now, and I know I'll get through it with him. It's as simple as that. My name's John Whitman, and my life has been super changed by Jesus Christ. And I'm a newborn Christian, and I have goosebumps talking about it.
Like a 10,000-pound boulder came off my shoulders. That's what it feels like when you finally realize that God doesn't call you by the names that you've taken on, from the shame that you've carried. Look, man, some of you you're tired today. You're tired today. Tired from dragging around the names of your past like a 10,000-pound boulder. And today it's time for a new name. It's time for a new name. For way too long, John, he carried around that name right there. Addict. He carried that one around for a long time. You heard him say he didn't even know if he was worthy of God's love. You know what I love about what he said? I love at the very end how with authority and clarity he said, my name is John Whitman, and I am a life changed by Christ. See, everything changed when he realized that when his Savior looks at him, he doesn't see addict. He sees John. He sees you. No longer is his name addict, because he knows the one who knows his name. And if you walked in here today carrying some shame, I believe Jesus is grabbing you by the shoulders right now. If you're carrying in a name with you right now, Jesus is grabbing you by the shoulders, and he's saying, this moment matters than you possibly know. It matters more than you possibly know. I'm calling your name right now. Not the name you've carried. I know, he knows the name you've carried. Not the shame you've been holding on to. Jesus is standing on the beach with you. He's got a beach moment with you planned right now. Right now. And And he's saying, I know what you've done. I locked eyes with you in the moments that you most regret. I know that you've done those things, but you are not defined by them, Jesus says. I can speak the final word over you. And I need you to know that my love for you is secure today. I'm not going anywhere. But he asks you, will you love me? And he stands with his hands on your shoulders this Easter weekend. And he's inviting you to do what he invited Peter to do all those years ago, what he invited John to do, to follow him, to trust him, to be in a relationship with him, and allow him to heal your past so you can have a new future. Guys, this is the good news. This is the good news right here. Jesus knows the worst about you. He knows all the ways you've denied him and rejected him and walked away from him, and he's still here, inviting you to follow. So just tell him right now. Just tell him, say what John said, I need help. Jesus, I need help. I can't do this, and you're the only one who can. I've carried around this heavy weight for way too long. You know, sometimes songs help me. Songs help me sometimes have language for what I'm feeling, and I just don't really know how to put into words things I want to say to God. And we opened up today with some words that just gives voice to what I've felt so many times and what I would imagine some of us here right now feel and just need to say to God, just need to admit to God. So if you want to reach out to Jesus right now, but you just don't know where to start, you don't know what to say, let these words be sung over you right now. Use these words, repeat them, say them back, say them as a prayer, reach out to Jesus, even right now.
I was buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb. Till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb. Till I met you. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave. You called my name. You called my name.
He's calling your name today. He's calling your name today. And he's asking you, would you let me speak over you what is most true? Would you let me lift the shame off your shoulders? Would you let me forgive the sins that you can't even forgive yourself of? He's not asking you to fix it. He's asking you to follow him. This is why Easter matters so much. This is why Easter matters. This is why Easter is the most consequential event in human history. Because only the one who exited the tomb can call us out of our own. Only the one who's defeated death and has the authority and power to speak the final word over us. Because if he walked out of that tomb, that means that his name is the greatest name. That means that his name is more powerful than any name you carried in here with you. That means that his name can swallow up all the other names we've carried.